Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Congress questions Secretary of State Antony Blinken about the Afghanistan withdrawal. He's the first member of the Biden administration to testify about the evacuation. President Biden visits the West Coast to speak with local officers about the wildfires and to survey wildfire damage. In the evening, he will travel to Southern California, where he's expected to support the governor against the recall election. A former Trump-appointed federal prosecutor joins Pennsylvania's gubernatorial race. He's one of many Republicans looking to turn the state red. New York's governor is urging Facebook to curb misinformation around abortions. She says the platform is already doing a good job when it comes to checking vaccine information. 1 million students head back to school in the Big Apple. We hear from parents who are relieved their kids are back in the classroom, and we have some more on the safety measures that many are happy about, but some say are a hassle. Congress is getting answers from the Biden administration about the Afghanistan withdrawal. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken testified virtually before the House Foreign Affairs Committee. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
Secretary Blinken is the first member of the Biden administration to account for the withdrawal before Congress. Congressman Scott Perry keyed in on the vetting of the Afghan refugees and wanted to know if it was possible for any members of the Taliban to infiltrate America by getting on one of the evacuation flights.
I want to know how many Afghan citizens came to the United States that had not met the qualifications for special immigrant visa.
We're in the process of going through.
How many? How many did you bring? You were just at Dulles. How many did you bring?
We will have, by the end of the month, we will have brought a total of approximately 60,000
that have not met the SIV process.
Some of those will have been through the SIV process. All of them, regardless of SIV status, will have gone through rigorous security checks. First at the transit points outside of the United States.
It'd be nice if that was done before we brought these people to the United States of America.
Congressman Chris Smith drilled Blinken on the leaked phone call between Biden and the Afghan president.
First, with regard to the phone call you cited, I'm obviously not going to comment on purportedly leaked transcripts of phone calls. Here's what I can tell you. What the president said in that conversation with then President Ghani is exactly what he was saying in public. And it's this, that the issue was not the capacity at that point of the Afghan government and the Afghan security forces to hold the country and to hold Kabul. It was their will and whether they had a plan to do so. And we were concerned that they were not demonstrating that will or that plan.
Others pointed to Biden's comments in July when he said it was highly unlikely that the Taliban would overtake the country.
To my knowledge, Congressman, no one predicted the unraveling before our forces and embassy left Afghanistan on August 31st. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, has said, nothing I or anyone else saw indicated a collapse of the government and the security forces in 11 days.
During the hearing, Blinken didn't answer some questions due to the sensitive nature of the intelligence. He said he would be happy to answer those specific questions during a separate hearing where the classified information could be discussed. Monday's hearing is the first of two appearances Blinken will have before Congress this week to testify about Afghanistan. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And in a rare moment of bipartisanship today, Republican and Democrat members of Congress joined together on the steps of the Capitol for a moment of silence commemorating 20 years since the 9/11 attacks. The leaders of each party gave some remarks and reflected on that life-changing day.
20 years ago, on a beautiful day much like this one, our country, our people changed forever. And a scene I'll never forget and think of all the time. Hundreds of frightened, scared, worried people were holding up makeshift little posters and signs with pictures. Have you seen my brother, Bill? Have you seen my daughter, Joan?
We had the sense to know there was something more important than politics. We stood together, united, proud to be Americans. We flew the American flag in homes across the country to honor the first responders who lost their lives and to celebrate the undying American values that a cowardly act of terrorism could not extinguish.
The ceremony at the Capitol concluded with a moment of silence and the singing of God Bless America by members of the U.S. Army band Pershing's Own. And President Biden visits the West Coast to survey the wildfire situation. California's two largest active wildfires continue to burn, but are both over 50% contained. We hear more from NTD's Eileen Ang.
President Joe Biden visits the West Coast for the first time as president. He joined federal and state fire agency officials at the National Interagency Fire Center in Idaho for a briefing on the current status of wildfires.
I've directed my administration to provide for pay bonuses and incentives to ensure every federal firefighter, because that's the only authority I have, makes at least $15 an hour.
He also traveled to California to survey wildfire damage and to deliver remarks about the federal response to wildfires. Currently, the Dixie Fire is California's largest active wildfire and second largest in the state's history. As of Monday, the fire has burned over 960,000 acres and is 75% contained. 1,329 structures have been destroyed. The Caldor Fire is threatening California residents around Lake Tahoe. The fire has burned just over 219,000 acres and is 67% contained as of Monday. 1,003 structures have been destroyed. California has dozens of other smaller wildfires burning throughout the state. Biden attributes the fires to climate change, but one forester mentions the importance of forest management.
The partnership and all of the cooperation between state and local governments, though, it's not just for wildfire suppression, like you said. You know, through Good Neighbor Authority, through shared stewardship, we work together with our local governments, with our tribal partners, and we do all of the critical fuels mitigation work. We do the forest health treatments that are out there.
On the same day, Biden is also expected to support California Governor Gavin Newsom in Southern California. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
And California's recall election is coming up tomorrow, and some have called it a historic moment. Later today, President Biden is expected to make an appearance in Venice Beach to visit California's governor and support his recall election campaign. NTD's David Lamb speaks to a survey director on the recent poll findings, as well as an advisor to the recall movement.
A poll released from UC Berkeley finds that more than 38% of those most likely to participate in the recall intend to vote yes to replace Governor Gavin Newsom. At the same time, just over 60% would say no.
So that's one of the main findings from the poll, is that early voters really are giving Newsom a huge advantage. We line up the data to the actual population characteristics of the state's registered voters in just about every dimension that we can. So we have a good balance of men and women, voters across all age groups, by party registration, by region, by race, ethnicity. A lot of different variables go into that what you call modeling.
DiCamillo said that their poll sampled nearly 10,000 registered voters across the state. He also said that half of the state's registered Democrats say they're not going to select a replacement candidate. Their reason is they don't see anyone that's appealing to them.
I know there are a lot of skeptics out there that have to do with polls, and I would just say this. If you really don't believe the accuracy of polls, go to the betting markets, put $100 down, and I think it's paying more than 10-to-1 odds right now if you put it down on the yes side. So you can certainly follow your own whims if you believe that, in fact, the yes side will prevail. I think the odds are very much against it.
He said Democrats have been more engaged in the past 6 weeks, impacting the polls. Randy Economy, the senior advisor for the recall movement, told NTD he's a skeptic.
I don't believe those polls, and I never have believed the polls since day one. Because of the way, I've been in politics for a long time, and I can write a poll right now to say, is the sky blue today? And I'll tell you, by the way I word the question and the way that the person would answer, I could probably get you a 40% thinking, I'm not really sure if today the sky is blue.
Supporters of the recall have expressed outrage over California's lockdown policies and the state's current situation. Opponents have said a recall would be too costly. They think Newsom has handled the state well.
So I don't believe the polls, I believe the people. And if the polls were really that way far out in front for Governor Newsom, he wouldn't have the President of the United States coming into California campaigning for him. He wouldn't have had Vice President Kamala Harris coming to town. He would, this wouldn't be the #1 priority for the White House Those polls are now outdated. The only poll that matters is the one that's going to happen on Tuesday. Period. End of story.
The polls for the recall close on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
NTD will cover the recall election from 5 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, September 14th. You can watch our live broadcast on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/NTDTV. And a former federal prosecutor appointed by President Trump is running for governor of Pennsylvania. Now, will Trump endorse him? And what is he offering Pennsylvanians? NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
We will have an educational system.
Former U.S. Attorney Bill McSwain made public his run for governor on Monday.
We will make it easy to vote, but hard to cheat.
McSwain was joined by his wife and their 4 kids. He served as federal prosecutor for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, appointed by then President Donald Trump, and that experience helped get his message across.
Now, I know election fraud exists because I actually prosecuted it and convicted ballot-stuffing election officials in Philadelphia while I was U.S. Attorney.
The former federal prosecutor added that he would put parents before teachers' unions. Pennsylvania has had a political back and forth in gubernatorial elections. Democratic Governor Tom Wolf was reelected in 2018. A Republican held office before him. In a public statement the same day McSwain announced his run, Wolf accused Pennsylvania Republicans of spreading election conspiracy theories. He said there were no irregularities, no conspiracies, and no fraud that occurred. McSwain is one of multiple Republican candidates. He's reportedly asked President Trump for his endorsement, but it's unclear if or when he'll get it for the 2022 election. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
New York State is pushing back against Texas abortion law and what they're calling misinformation about abortions. They're asking Facebook to help with the cause. NTD's Arian Pazdar attended the announcement in Central Park.
Governor Hochul and a number of other elected officials got together here to stand up for women's rights to abort their unborn babies. They say that New York has always been leading the fight when it comes to people's personal freedoms, so they feel like it's their duty to speak up. Hochul said so-called misinformation on social media is a major problem when it comes to young women deciding whether to abort or not.
She believes that she has the courage to do what she wants to do and say, I'm going to have an abortion. But at the same time, her friends and others are forwarding information and horrible messages and calling her a murderer. What does that do to the psyche of a young woman?
The governor said she wants Facebook to stop misinformation around abortions, similar to what they're doing about vaccine information.
And I'm asking Facebook, starting today, to help clean up the act.
Now, in theory, a private company is allowed to limit speech, but only if they're doing so on their own accord.
If the private sector entity is not really acting voluntarily, but instead is being pressured by the government or working in collaboration with government, that is tantamount to government censorship.
Nadine Strawson is a professor of law and former president of the American Civil Liberties Union. I asked her if the governor's call on Facebook is unlawful.
Government officials have their own free speech rights. So the governor of New York, along with other officials, is certainly free to convey her opinion, to encourage, to urge, to advocate that Facebook take a certain action. And it's a sort of a factual judgment question. When does her advocacy cross the line from protected speech to unprotected government coercion?
In her letter, the governor urged Mark Zuckerberg to curb misinformation. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
It is now more difficult for violent criminals to be released on bail in Texas. The Texas governor hopes to reduce crime in his state, saying that to do so, we need to restore God and family values in our communities. Here's more.
The Damon Allen Act is now law in Texas.
The Texas governor signed the bail reform bill known as the Damon Allen Act into law on Monday. It bans releasing suspects on personal bond if they are charged with a violent offense. The same applies to suspects who are charged while they are out on bail.
You have revolving door releases of dangerous criminals back out onto streets who then go commit even more crimes. The Texas legislature passed a law to fix the broken bail system and to keep dangerous criminals behind bars.
Personal bond does not require a suspect to pay money, but requires other measures such as monitoring. But this new law requires cash bail. The law is named after Texas State Trooper Damon Allen, who was killed in the line of duty in 2017.
Trooper Damon Allen was shot and killed during a routine traffic stop by a previously arrested and convicted criminal who was out on bail but should not have been out on bail.
The judge that granted bail to the shooter didn't have access to his criminal history. This new law gives judges access to the criminal history of suspects up for bail through an information system. The governor highlights two causes for the rise in crime in recent years, especially in the Houston area.
One is what I already mentioned, and that is an erosion in family values. Another that we've seen a rise over the past 2 years in Texas, in Harris County, but also across the United States, there is increasing disrespect for law enforcement.
Abbott says in order to reduce and prevent crime, we need to do the following.
There is no better crime prevention tool than good parenting. We need to get back to the social fabric of what will improve our communities. We need better parenting, greater parental involvement. We need to restore God in our communities. If we do that, we will be able to reduce crime in this region.
Democrats and left-wing organizations have largely opposed the bill, saying it will overcrowd jails and criminalize poverty. The law will go into effect early December.
The Gulf Coast is once again bracing for dangerous weather. Tropical storm Nicholas is expected to make landfall on the Texas coast later tonight. Winds could reach 65 miles per hour within the next 2 days. Heavy rains could cause significant flooding in southeastern Texas and southwestern Louisiana. Some areas could see 10 to 12 inches of rain, with others getting as much as 20 inches by the end of this week. A hurricane watch is in effect on the Texas coast, and almost 9 million people are under flash flood watch. Urban areas, including Corpus Christi and Houston, could be especially vulnerable to flooding. Louisiana's governor declared a state of emergency on Sunday, and in the Houston area, people are lining up to get gas. And Seattle police officers swear to uphold the law and are expected to follow orders. But hundreds may refuse an order to vaccinate against COVID. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on these officers willing to risk their jobs for their right to choose.
Many would agree police officers have a lot on their shoulders. To continue upholding the law in Seattle, officers will need to roll up their sleeves. But unnamed sources tell the Post-Millennial in Seattle that hundreds are prepared to trade in their badges for medical choice. A group called SPD United, founded by a purported Seattle police officer, is encouraging members of the force to withhold their COVID-19 vaccination status.
At some point, you have to trust the science. Is it a bargaining issue with the guild? Absolutely. They should be bargaining now.
Jim Fuda is a public safety officer, an expert on crime, law enforcement, and safety. Fuda says he believes that officers should be vaccinated, but should also be offered an alternative like periodic testing, because the city can't afford to lose more officers like the nearly 20% that have called it quits in less than 2 years as of May.
You only have so many are down handling protests and demonstrations and things like that. What about the rest of the tax-paying citizens, the ones that need calls for service in other parts of the city that can't get it because there's just no officers to respond? I mean, it's a catch-22. We had a city council that wanted to defund and get rid of officers with no plan in place of what to do.
SPD United says its mission is one of human rights, constitutional rights, civil liberties, and freedom of choice. Mayor Jenny Durkin ordered city employees, which include police, to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by mid-October. She hasn't told us how the city will respond to the hundreds of officers they could potentially lose. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
It's back to school in New York City, and for some students, it's the first time back in a classroom after a year and a half of pandemic shutdowns. And so it's no surprise that for some, it's one of the best days they've had in a very long time. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more on how this milestone is affecting students, parents, and the school bus monitor.
New York City public schools are now open for 1 million students. The mayor, Bill de Blasio, says the healthiest place for kids to be is in school. And he says safety measures are in place to help kids have a positive and safe school year. One parent we spoke to said her daughter was in blended learning with remote and in-person instruction last year, and she says her child spent more time at home than in school, which affected her emotional development.
We as adults have been so anxious during this time. Just imagine kids in their little bodies having to bottle up all of these feelings and not really know what's going on. So I found that there was such a release in her. She got to play with her friends. Yes, they were masked, but she got to play with her friends. She got to play in the playground. And I feel like she was even more excited to learn.
This time around, things are a little different. Students must wear masks, keep a 3-foot distance, and have their temperature checked before entering, which some parents aren't too happy with because it can lead to an hour wait. But for some parents who work at home, having their kids learn in person has opened up new possibilities.
But good, I could probably be a lot more efficient, at my job because I'm still working from home, and, juggling that as like a working from home parent has been a challenge. But, obviously I still feel fortunate to be able to do that and not have the concerns parents have that couldn't work from home.
And while some parents are relieved, the first day of school could be a little tiring for this kindergartner. Wow, what did you learn today?
I learned, I don't remember.
And a school bus attendant says all staff must be vaccinated and that now she has over 3 times as many kids to look after.
Well, it's more work because now you got to make sure everybody is separated from each other in the school bus. You understand? So we got to try and one sit here, one sit there, no talking, please, But otherwise, everything is fine.
We also spoke with a woman whose grandchildren are now back in school, and she says when students were at home learning remotely, parents were able to look on and become more aware of what their kids were learning. And this includes things like critical race theory. Now keep in mind, her parents brought her here to get her out of Soviet Russia, and now she says socialist ideas are creeping up in schools. Reporting in New York City, Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
4 people are injured in an explosion that rocked an apartment building in Georgia on Sunday. Part of the building collapsed due to the blast, which officials are still investigating. Here are the details.
Officials in DeKalb County, Georgia, say the explosion occurred Sunday afternoon at the Arrive Perimeter Apartments in Dunwoody. That's an Atlanta suburb. Police and firefighters detected heavy gas fumes when they arrived, and they evacuated residents from the 3-story complex. They don't yet know the exact cause, but a local utility had received a call from a resident shortly before the blast, saying there was a strong odor of gas. The DeKalb County Deputy Fire Chief Melvin Carter said they had searched 90% of the building. A fire captain said 3 apartments had completely collapsed, and rescuers hadn't been able to get in because the overall structure was unstable. Officials are shoring up the rest of the complex so rescuers can continue searching for anyone who might be trapped. Police initially closed off roads surrounding the complex, and residents in impacted areas were not allowed to return home Sunday night.
Coast Guard authorities say they rescued 3 people after a vessel began taking on water off the coast of New Jersey over the weekend.
Officials said Monmouth County 911 dispatchers called shortly after 9 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday to report the emergency 3 miles east of Long Branch. Officials said a 47-foot motor lifeboat was sent to the scene. In addition, a helicopter from the Atlantic City station was diverted from training and headed there. Coast Guard officials said a rescue swimmer was lowered from the helicopter and helped all 3 people aboard the motor lifeboat. They were taken to Shark River Marina. Officials said all 3 had life jackets and no injuries or medical concerns were reported. According to the Asbury Park Press, the 25-foot vessel, which was last seen drifting, will be salvaged by its owner.
TikTok is in the spotlight for promoting sex and drug videos to minors. That's according to a new report by the Wall Street Journal. NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
The most downloaded app since 2020 is TikTok. It's currently #1 on Apple's App Store entertainment section. It's ahead of Hulu, HBO Max, and even Netflix. But there's an issue. Minors aged 13 to 15 are being shown sex and drug videos endlessly.
TikTok sort of feeds it up to you,
and learns what you're interested in based on the amount of time you spend on different videos.
That's what happened to the Wall Street Journal. To investigate TikTok's algorithm, it set up dozens of fake accounts, only to start getting a tsunami of adult videos.
Like, TikTok is the wild, wild west.
Sam Sorbo is a kids education influencer. She is the host of Schools Out on Epoch TV.
I do think that TikTok is perhaps more dangerous than many of the other social media apps.
One account registered as a 13-year-old was shown 600 videos on drug use, from cocaine to meth. Other accounts saw countless videos promoting sex shops and pornography sites.
Social media might need to start having similar regulations to see what minors can and cannot see.
TikTok says protecting minors is important. Users under 18 need parental consent to use the app, according to its terms of service.
You know, they're using it as fun and games when there are people who are actively using TikTok to target your children.
NTD News spoke to rising TikTok star Savannah Smiles. Her recent video got over 300,000 views.
It's just a quick, fun way to entertain yourself. I think it exposes you to a lot more different people. You get to see people on your Explore page that you wouldn't normally see, so it's really cool in that aspect.
She has not been exposed to sex and drug videos, but says TikTokers should be cautious.
It's the 21st century and it's out there, so I think the best thing to do as parents is just to educate them on what's out there.
Her mom, Donna, agrees.
As a TikTok mom, I am concerned about our kids, but I think it starts at home. Like, we have to have those conversations with our children and ensure that they are equipped to make good choices.
So what can happen to kids if they keep watching videos on sex and drugs?
They really can get physically hurt, certainly psychologically hurt, induced to practice all of these sex acts or to start using drugs, or even there are some about eating disorders, to start doing all of the things that they think are cool because they see it on TikTok.
TikTok says it removed 90 million videos in the second half of last year, but it's getting hard to keep up. Thousands of videos are getting uploaded every minute. Phil Zhou, NTD News, New York.
And TikTok just surpassed YouTube in average time spent on apps per user. But YouTube still has more users and gets more time on the app overall. And coming up, a Category 5 super typhoon is headed for China. Authorities have issued the highest level warning to locals. And a new outbreak of the CCP virus in China. A man completed 3 weeks of quarantine and tested negative 9 times, yet still reportedly brought the virus to China. More in a moment here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Navigating a world of economic madness, you need to have the right guide. What do today's decisions mean for your tomorrow? We ask why. What's the alternative? Uncover the deeper reasons and the hidden influences, and highlight the real opportunities for profit.
At NTD Business,
We connect the dots for you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
A typhoon is headed for China, clocking winds over 100 miles per hour at its center. Authorities along the nation's coastal regions are taking preemptive measures, and they've already issued the highest emergency response level in some areas. NTD's Don Ma has more.
A super typhoon from the Philippines is tearing toward China. The country's eastern coastal cities are preparing for Typhoon Chansu to hit on Monday. Chansu was since downgraded from a super typhoon or Category 5 to a Category 3. But winds near its center are still roaring at a formidable 105 miles per hour. Residents of Shanghai, Zhejiang, and other coastal areas have been warned to brace for strong winds and intense rains as the storm nears. Zhejiang's Meteorological Observatory forecast heavy rainfall for the province in the coming days, while local authorities have issued the highest possible emergency response level. Schools, flights, subways, trains, and other transport services have been shut down in many cities there. Also in Zhejiang, authorities asked local fishing boats to return to port and take shelter. Online videos show flooding and landslides have already started. Along its path to China, Typhoon Chansu passed through Taiwan on Sunday. It drenched the island with heavy rain and blasted it with strong winds. Taiwan's central news agency reported more than 2,000 people were relocated from risk areas. Some airline flights and train services were suspended during the storm. Chansu originated from the Philippine Sea. It hit the northernmost region of the Philippines on Saturday, when it was still classified as a super typhoon. Packing maximum wind gusts of 174 miles per hour, it cut power and damaged houses. No casualties have been reported, but over 11,000 residents have been affected. One local called it one of the strongest typhoons he's ever experienced. Chansu is expected to head towards Japan and South Korea after plowing through China. Don Ma, NTD News.
Disgruntled investors of China's second largest property developer, Evergrande, are protesting, demanding their money back. Nearly 300 real estate companies reportedly filed for bankruptcy this year. If Evergrande joins the list, it could send shockwaves through China's economy. NTD's Evelyn Lee reports.
Chaotic scenes at the headquarters of China's Evergrande Group. Roughly 100 investors crowded the lobby on Monday, chanting, "Give us our money back." Evergrande, once China's biggest property developer, is also the world's most debt-saddled property developer, according to the New York Times. Now, many investors and buyers are airing their frustration.
We sold everything we had, both of those apartments, so that we could buy a property with Evergrande because of you. I expected tens of millions of yuan, but I haven't even received an invoice. This has been going on since May.
Du Liang, the general manager of Evergrande's wealth management division, reportedly remained in the lobby overnight, with protesters taking turns to air their grievances. The company has liabilities of more than $300 billion, an amount that is higher than Finland's GDP in 2020. This debt is partly a result of Evergrande's highly risky business model. It would borrow loans to buy land, then develop and sell homes at lower margins for fast turnover. Evergrande has been on life support for months, but this time Beijing is not stepping in. Chinese regulators want to fix the property sector's bad habit of borrowing too much. And with China's crackdown turning its focus onto the real estate market, nearly 300 real estate companies declared bankruptcy this year. That's according to Chinese news media, The Time Weekly. Evergrande owes foreign investors more than $7 billion in bond payments for just next year. Now George Soros warns that an Evergrande default could cause China's economy to crash. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
China's strict 3-week quarantine is under question after a new outbreak of the CCP virus. A man who completed 21 days of quarantine upon returning home in China is believed to be the likely source. That means the virus can last longer than we thought, or he was infected within China. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
Some returning travelers have to do 3 weeks of quarantine in China. But is it enough? Chinese officials reported a new virus case on Saturday from a man who spent 21 days in quarantine. He tested negative 9 times, yet still reportedly brought the virus into the country. That's in southeast China's Fujian province, where a new outbreak of the CCP virus struck. Local officials reported at least 75 cases in the past 3 days. The first cases were students from a local elementary school. But experts pointed to one of the students' parents, a father who recently returned from Singapore. He's believed to be the likely source of the outbreak. He was tested 9 times in quarantine and each time came back negative until he tested positive on Friday. That's 37 days after he entered China, according to state-run media Global Times. How could this happen? Experts can't explain how the virus could remain hidden for so long. Or did he get infected in China? No one knows. Now, local officials are telling the public not to leave the area. They have suspended bus and train services, closed cinemas and bars and other facilities, and they've ramped up mass testing. The cases coming on the heels of another Delta-driven outbreak. It spread to more than half of China's provinces in July after emerging in the eastern province of Jiangsu. In response, authorities placed tens of millions of residents under strict lockdown and launched massive tracking and testing campaigns. By late August, health officials announced the outbreak had been effectively brought under control. Due to a lack of transparency under the regime, we cannot verify if the outbreak is actually resolved. But the surging cases do seem to challenge China's zero-tolerance virus policy.
The British government has abandoned plans to introduce so-called COVID passports in England. It will also take steps to end some of its pandemic emergency powers.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will formally set out on Tuesday his plans to manage the crisis in the winter months. Johnson's under fire from some in his Conservative Party for raising taxes to fix a health and social care crisis. Health Minister Sajid Javid said on Sunday that he did not anticipate more lockdowns and that the COVID vaccine passports would not be introduced in England. Under the plan, people would have had to use the passes to prove their vaccination status to enter some venues such as nightclubs. The government will depend instead on vaccines and testing to defend the public. Javid also told the BBC he was not, quote, anticipating any more lockdowns, but would not take the measure off the table, and that he wanted to end PCR tests for travellers as soon as possible. The Nighttime Industries Association trade body, which represents the nightlife business, welcomed the U-turn.
The UK's chief medical officers have decided children aged 12 to 15 should be offered a COVID vaccine, despite the vaccine advisory body not recommending it. The medical officers say they took in considerations including effects on education. NTD's Eddie Aitken has more.
The UK's chief medical officers say children aged 12 to 15 should be offered the vaccine.
Our view was the benefit exceeded the risk to a sufficient degree that we are recommending to our ministers in all 4 nations that they make a universal offer, and I want to stress the word offer, of vaccination to children 12 to 15 in addition to the ones that are already being given it.
It follows advice from the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, or JCVI, advising against vaccines for the age group. Chris Whitty and his Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish counterparts say they're recommending the vaccine on public health grounds, and it will reduce but not eliminate educational disruption.
We do not think that this is a panacea. This is not a silver bullet. It's not a single thing that on its own will do so, but we think it is an important and potentially useful additional tool to help reduce the public health impacts that come through educational disruption.
They asked the JCVI to look at whether to give second doses to children once more data is available. NHS England have previously been asked to prepare to roll out vaccines for all 12 to 15-year-olds. The government is expected to announce support of its medical officers' advice tomorrow. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
On Saturday, 18-year-old Emma Raducanu became the pride of Britain, winning the U.S. Open final. Her win ends Britain's 44-year wait for a female Grand Slam champion. NTD's Eddie Aitken has the story.
British teenager Emma Raducanu shocks the world by becoming the first qualifier to win a Grand Slam tournament. Clutching her new trophy on Sunday, she says her win hasn't sunk in yet.
I mean, it only really sunk in when after I won the semi-finals, that I was in the final of a Grand Slam. Like, the occasion, there was no getting around, it's your first Grand Slam final.
Raducanu competed in a series of qualifying matches prior to competing in the US Open main draw. Making it to the main tournament in this way and then going on to become champion is a remarkable achievement, a first in history. She won the final in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3 against Canada's Leila Fernandez, becoming Britain's first female Grand Slam winner in 4 decades, and the youngest British tennis player to win a Grand Slam title.
Yeah, it means so much to me to be here with the trophy. It was always a dream to win a Grand Slam, so to be here, I'm really just want to enjoy every single second of this day.
She tells Sky News during the championship she just concentrated on the matches, not distracted by the world outside her hotel and the stadium.
Because I knew exactly what I had to do out there. I'm going out there just taking care of point for point, business as usual. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to focus on the match, and that's exactly what I did. So, I'm very, very pleased with how I managed to perform the last 3 weeks.
Raducanu says she spoke to her parents after the match. They had been unable to come to New York because of COVID-19 restrictions.
They were extremely happy and proud of me, and they're my toughest and biggest critics, and to have them say they're proud and happy, it just means absolutely everything. And when I was out there, I definitely wanted to do it for them as well as me, because they've been through a lot as well as me, and I wouldn't be here without them because they played such a big role in my upbringing, but also my tennis.
After her win, congratulatory messages came pouring in. Prime Minister Boris Johnson posted on Twitter, "You showed extraordinary skill, poise and guts, and we're all hugely proud of you." In a statement, Her Majesty the Queen wrote, "It is a remarkable achievement at such a young age, and is testament to your hard work and dedication." 18-year-old Raducanu was born in Canada to a Romanian father and a Chinese mother. Her family moved to the UK when she was 2. Now, with this win under her belt, Raducanu has become the new British #1 in tennis and ranks number 23 in the world. Hedy Aitken, NTD News.
Coming up in the UK, a concert pianist transforms a canal boat into a floating venue. Music lovers can enjoy private recitals as it traverses London's waterways. And a 4-legged guest star stole the show at an Irish cricket match. We'll take a look at the adorable footage after the break.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
In London, music lovers can enjoy a live performance on a canal boat after a concert pianist converted it into a floating venue. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us the story.
A concert pianist has converted a canal boat into a floating performance venue. As the piano boat traverses London's waterways, music lovers can enjoy private recitals.
This is the piano boat, which is the only canal boat of its kind. It was built to our specifications as a floating concert venue. So we have a brand new Steinway grand piano, and here we give musical experiences for people on the canals.
The captain of the piano boat is also the pianist. He says he finds the experience different from playing in a theatre.
I think the whole intimacy of it, really sharing the musical moments, and for me to actually talk about the thoughts without having to use a microphone or shout at the top of my voice, it's a really different experience. And to be able to talk to people who are there afterwards is also great.
Tayama plays Beethoven and Schumann to an audience of a dozen in evening dress. Henderson says the response from the audience is positive.
It's all been a bit surreal, really, because we only started less than 2 months ago, and already, our cruises are sold out for months, which is amazing, as a new business just after COVID as well.
Henderson says the idea of a floating concert venue came when they were living on a narrowboat. They had a digital piano on board and it attracted interest from passers-by. The piano boat is moored in Uxbridge, just outside London. Joy Dugid, NTD News.
The UK is in the grips of chess fever. A Netflix show about a fictional chess prodigy, coupled with people searching for things to do during lockdown, has seen the ancient board game soar in popularity.
High-end supplier Regency Chess has many products with the notice sold out due to the Queen's Gambit, the Netflix show named after a classic chess move. The English Chess Federation says it has doubled its number of active players in the past year. And Chess.com says it is hosting over 10 million games a day with 72 million members. That's 22 million new members this year. President of the English Chess Federation, Dominic Lawson, says he hopes the government will see the boom as a good reason to grant sports status to chess, allowing it to apply for public funding.
Dozens of water athletes glided on the turquoise waters of France's Annecy Lake on a Saturday at a race that promotes the new discipline of foil cycling. The sport allows cyclers to fly on water aboard pedal-powered boats.
Created by Annecy-based startup Jet Cycle, the boats are composed of a pedaling system and 2 foils on the front and at the back that allow cyclers to take flight 7 to 12 inches over water at speeds up to 8 miles per hour. The athletes boarded the Jet Cycle boats in 2 racing events, an 820-foot sprint race and a half-mile regatta course. French Olympic gold medalist in rowing, Matteo Androdius, also tested the vehicle during the 2-day meet. The Jet Cycle is currently in its final phase of industrialization.
A cricket match was disrupted on Saturday by an unlikely pitch invader, a Cocker Spaniel puppy named Dazzle.
I have to take a chance now. Oh, dog. Oh, the dog is the ball. Oh, here we go. Now that is...
The incident happened during the semi-final match of the inaugural Women's Clear Currency All-Ireland T20 Cup. And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.